Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Friday, May 27th. Time for another show. It is Friday before Memorial Day weekend, so everybody is all excited about that. I have to decide what we're doing on Monday. I didn't tell Greg not to show up, although, I think that's always a relatively easy thing to do. Welcome call, don't worry about it. Sleep in on Monday. But I don't know. As we were discussing that here at home. Kagro in the Morning World headquarters, of course. We might as well get up and do something early in the morning. You're probably going to get up and read the news anyway. Everybody's friendly here, and we have a good time hanging out together. I don't know. I will have to give it some thought. It would be nice to, just kind of chill out. But isn't that what we do here? We'll see. And, you won't know until it's too late, because that's the kind of show we are. We love giving you advance notice of everything. We plan everything here. All right. Well, plenty to catch up on. Lots still parked in pocket. Lots parked there overnight because things are still happening. I don't even know what to tell you about the developing situation down in Texas where, by the way, I haven't been watching any TV news. Are they going with the anglicized Uvalde pronunciation, or are they going with the more Spanish smooth vowel Uvalde, or I don't doubt anybody's saying Uvalde, but Uvalde? I don't know. I haven't heard it on TV. I'm just not catching what the reporters are doing. Anyway, what they're doing when they're down there, I guess, is trying to straighten out what exactly happened here. What's the police timeline? The police are backing off of the initial claim that there was a school resource officer on hand to engage the murderer, although I don't know. Maybe they didn't know he was a murderer, although he was just carrying an AR-15 and a backpack. But the initial story was that they engaged outside of the school building, but that this officer was not able to stop him from getting into the building. And then the most surprising part really was that they then said, but no gunfire was exchanged at that time. And I thought, what a perfect time to exchange gunfire. We should, it's like exchanging gifts at Christmas. When a school resource officer engages someone with an AR-15 and a backpack on their way towards the back entrance of an elementary school, that feels like the time to exchange gunfire. I guess ideally you don't exchange it per se, and there's only, let's say, one shot fired and the whole thing is fine. Although, then of course people would be questioning, what if it was a toy gun? Well, I guess in a different context that would make a lot more sense. But then crashing your car and jumping out and charging towards the back door of an elementary school with an AR-15 and a backpack. If it was a toy, you're dumb, and you're really in for it. Now, of course, you could probably you should be allowed to get away with it's a toy gun if you are sitting on a park bench playing around, bothering no one, and there's nobody around to disturb with the whole thing. We all know what we're talking about there. But anyway, that's not what's going on here. It's just a weird question. Now the police say, maybe there wasn't a school resource officer who was there at that point, and maybe they didn't engage outside. And it's like unclear as to, sure, there's the fog of war in the middle of a fourth grade classroom, but you do have that problem trying to figure out exactly what was going on. But it's almost as if the police stopped and thought about it a little bit and thought, is it bad to say that we engaged the suspect outside but didn't do anything? How does that look alongside having a SWAT team that, by the way, I read, apparently, I found out on Twitter, Hillzoy, our Twitter pal by that handle, letting everyone know, I guess, having read through the Uvalde SWAT team webpage, they have their own webpage, they're posing and all their equipment, that apparently one of their standard practices was parading around, essentially, in their tactical gear, touring the school buildings during the school day when the kids can see them and totally freak out. They would do that to familiarize themselves with the layouts of their local schools, because they were going to be like that crack unit that would respond to a school shooting. And then Uvalde, whatever, had a school shooting, and guess who was busy that day? They were washing their hair, washing their tactical wigs, I guess, because they were nowhere to be found. Apparently, by the way, when they did go in, and I don't know what they did, but they got into the room. They were having such trouble getting in to the classroom because it was locked. We talked all about that yesterday. They had to get a staff member to open door. Whatever happened to the movies, blow the door and then we'll get in there and then we'll use awesome, stun grenades to, okay. Well, anyway, they didn't do any of that. Apparently it was the Border Patrol sent an elite unit that took care of this, which, by the way, just, traumatized kids a little more in the border town in Texas. Anyway, I found the whole thing kind of amazing. And I guess alongside the fact that the SWAT team doesn't show up or play any role, despite the fact that they've been touring places and learning the layouts. And, is it bad to say that we didn't do anything? Oh, we should probably revise that. Yeah. We didn't not do that thing. We did not do this other thing that also was no help whatsoever. It's really looking bad. As I said, there's really no way to encapsulate better, if I do say so myself, than to say, this thing couldn't look worse than if they had showed up with donuts and stood around. They did nothing, and it's inexplicable. And usually in a situation like this, where it's totally inexplicable in this way, I say, in a couple of days, and it's still possible that we may get this, but in a couple of days, there's going to be somebody who, is actually intimately familiar with these kinds of operations and will explain the logistics of this. And it'll still feel raw and bad and wrong, but it'll make sense. But as time passes, I'm having difficulty thinking of what that explanation would be. And sometimes you can come up with it yourself. Like, I can understand, for instance, setting up a police perimeter. Yes, you would do that. And using the cops manning that perimeter to prevent parents from charging into the building to save their kids. Yes, I understand that. I also understand the optics of preventing them. I don't know if I can help you with you should handcuff them, you should tase them, you should pepper spray them, you should sit on top of their heads. Nah, don't do that. But, and of course, then there's always, the standard line of you have to, I know it's crazy, it feels terrible, you got to stay here, you got to let us do our jobs. But then, if you're not doing your job, then that might ring hollow. But ring hollow, big deal. Things they say ring hollow all the time. Just do this. I understand the perimeter. By the way, speaking of perimeters, might as well just wing this whole show this way. Well, we do it every other day. I don't know if it's any different here. But speaking of the perimeters, apparently one of the big stories making the rounds is of the local mom who, by the way, to give you some hint as to how long it took for this thing to be resolved, if that's even what you can call it. The big story making the rounds is of the mom who, upon hearing the news of there being an active shooter at the school, immediately jumped in her car and drove 40 minutes from work to get to, I assume it's normally 40 minutes, and she probably made it she probably made pretty good time, I would say. Anyway, she arrives, and then she's, gets to the police perimeter where she sees no activity, and I guess you can hear gunfire at that point, and that she's begging the cops, go in there, go do something. One of the many parents who were there doing that. Apparently, at some point, she makes a break for it and just says, forget it, I'll go and get my kids out of there. The cops stop her. They handcuff her, sit her down and the whole thing. Apparently, she talks her way out of the handcuffs, which good, I'm glad, although it does make you wonder about the cops down there, right? Like, well, we shouldn't go in there. We could get shot. That's pretty dangerous. I don't think we should do it. Maybe we should wait an hour. The SWAT team that tours buildings but doesn't show up. Let's call the Border Patrol instead. Get some real mean cops around here. And also, you got somebody who, for their own safety, is being stopped from running into the school, I guess. And then handcuffing them. You make the decision to handcuff somebody. I don't know. Do you really let people talk you out of it? Please, I promise I won't do it again. And I guess the cops are sympathetic. So I could see how it happens, but I would see there maybe being a come talk to me in my office sort of moment. The crusty police captain. Jones, I want to see you in my office right now. When you handcuff somebody, you don't let them talk their way out of the handcuffs. But, somebody needs some talking to. Anyway, she talks her way out of the handcuffs. Great. And then, I'd love to see this. Moseys away from the crowd, finds another area of the perimeter of the school where, nobody's hanging out. It's not the parking lot. Hops the fence, runs into the school building, and rescues her own kids and carries them out. Which, I don't know what to say. I don't want to, glorify it or encourage it too much because somebody is going to try this again later and get killed. But, okay, hallelujah, it worked out. And she got out of the building safely. And that's fantastic. And part of that has to do with the fact that they hold this shooter up, or he holed himself up in this classroom. But that leaves aside, there's still people in there. He's still killing those people. You can't wait. But apparently, I guess the police situation, they figured he's locked in this classroom and he's not coming out. It's possible for, this wasn't the plan, but it's possible for the mom to run in there and grab her kids out of another classroom and get out of there safely. Thank God he's not roaming the hallways, or there's not multiple shooters like everybody's always afraid of, and killing even more people. But I guess that also, by the way, set up the situation that we discussed the other day, that the cops who responded also, I guess they said, that lady has the right idea, and ran in and rescued their kids from their classrooms. Well, now I really have questions. I guess I can understand the mom doing this, but if the cops, did they run in and literally grab their kids and run out the door? And did they say to the rest of the second grade or whatever, stay here, kids, someone is coming for you soon? Did they leave kids in the, I guess if you go and you rescue your own kids, do you then not try to shepherd the whole classroom out? Come with me. The shooter's locked up in the fourth grade classroom and he's not coming out. Let's go. Let's make a break for it. Or everybody out the window or something. I don't know. No discussion so far of what happened there, but I have to have questions. I have to have questions because there's no answers. Nobody's answering any questions or telling us what happened. So what else am I going to do? Like we always say, it would be irresponsible not to speculate. But anyway, can I just say a word or two about being able to hop the fence and run into a building that's supposedly, what do we say when there's an active shooter? What's the name of the drill that they do in preparation for an active shooter, or when there actually is an active shooter? What do we say about the building? We say it is blanked down. Blanked down. Anybody? I need Jeopardy type music. What's the alternative Jeopardy music? There's another game show that has that dun 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 dun. What is that? The syncopated clock? Maybe no game show uses that. It's just a famous piece. Anyway, you guessed it, locked down. Remember Ted Cruz, crazy Ted Cruz. There only should be one door. And of course, if you wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt, if he were Donald Trump, what we should do is we gotta close all the doors until we figure out what the hell is going on out there. And then they would normalize it and they would say, well, what he really means is that all the doors should be locked, not with chains so that you can't get out during a fire, but they should be locked to the outside, but they can be opened from the inside if you need an emergency exit, which is what we call the regular effing doors that every school already has. So it's a great innovation from Ted Cruz. By the way, one door. I don't know if I said it on the air yesterday. I think it might have struck me after and I was talking about it on Twitter. This is the big-time Princeton, Harvard, Ivy League intercollegiate debate champion. We should have armed guards at every... We already have them. It doesn't work. Well, then we should have armed teachers. We already even have that. The teachers shoot themselves. They blow up toilets. Well, we should have one door. That's it. That's the Ivy League debate champion. All right, everybody. That's it for electing Ivy Leaguers. I think I'm with the Republicans on that one, finally. Except what do? They keep electing their own Ivy Leaguers. And they turn out to be the worst trash in the world. Anyway. Not all Ivy Leaguers. Just the ones that they seem to like. I don't know. Anyway, so just another thing for the police to deal with. The school is locked down. Mom hops a fence, runs in the door, grabs two kids, and makes off. In the middle of a active shooter lockdown, surrounded by police, which, maybe you want to worry about people in custody battles or something. You can apparently in Texas, a secure school, you can hop the fence, run in another door, go shopping for kids, take two, one under each arm, and run. I probably shouldn't be allowed to happen, but like I said, thank God she made it out of there, and whatever. And others will point out she is a Mexican-American woman. I don't know what her immigration status is, but I'm sure the right wing will be checking also to find out whether she has any granite countertops or anything. But supposing that to be the case, supposing that she had immigrated legally or otherwise from Mexico, and right-wingers might decide to make hay of it, I suppose you make hay right back and say, by the way, did you notice how quickly she hopped the fence and got past your police? And I understand the only people you sent to actually do something to the school was the Border Patrol. She hopped the fence, ran in, took her kids, ran away, and went home. And not your fence, not your SWAT team, not your Border Patrol, not your cops, nothing. Nobody stopped her. So good luck with the wall, I guess. Anyway, it's been a wild time trying to figure out what goes on. The cops revising their story. I don't know whether they're going to have another press conference anytime soon and try and straighten things out. Lots of circulation yesterday of video of, I don't even know who the hell it was, but a cop in a big cowboy hat. I don't know. They're all cops in big cowboy hats who went on TV and apparently was unashamed to get himself into a situation where he was able to be quoted as saying, with a big screenshot of him in his big cowboy hat, that the reason the police didn't go in was because they were worried that they could get shot. Well, as everybody reacted, properly, that's the job. We don't want you to get shot, but that's why we give you all the equipment and all the training and all that stuff. But yeah, I don't know. One day, perhaps there will be an explanation. Somebody tried to tell people on Twitter, well, you can't just go in. You got to go in those stacks, right? We all learned about stacking when we watched the Oath Keepers doing it on January 6th, going in a tactical formation and and you can't just go in and close quarters combat and throwing around all the jargon and blah, blah, blah. And there's a certain point, I guess, to be taken away from all of that. But I guess we might also point out that one 18-year-old with one rifle, as dangerous and destructive as he can be, is not the same thing as they say, clearing a building in close combat conditions. It's one guy. And I guess a competent police communicator could have said, well, yeah. But you have one guy with an incredibly powerful weapon, which just leads to all other commentary. Like, should we be allowing people at any age, much less, 18th birthday, go buy a weapon so powerful that the police, in all their glory, are afraid to try and take it away from you if you murder 20 school children? Well, I don't know. It's pretty dangerous in there. It is. So, don't allow the guns, maybe. There was a 10-year period where we didn't. A lot less shootings at that point. Anyway, but yeah, they managed to get this cop on the air in his hat and everything to say, We didn't want to go because we were afraid of getting shot. And we all are. The fourth graders certainly were. But yet that's kind of what you're supposed to do. But it was nice of you to admit it. I don't know. I don't know what to make of this thing. I don't know if I tweeted the thing around or not. I saw it getting wide circulation. You probably did too. And it really doesn't matter what the name of the guy with the hat is. That's the truth of the matter. And we all understand that. All right, let's see. Other things that were of interest about that. Yes, this morning, people circulating. Lauren Boebert making the brilliant observation that, when 9/11 happened, we didn't ban planes, so therefore something. We had a school shooting goal. We shouldn't ban guns. Of course, most people are not out saying ban all guns. Armando is. He says so. He's happy to tell you that. But certainly people want to ban certain guns, like the ones that are used in all the school shootings, for instance. We could start with that one. I understand there's logistical problems with that, too. But also, did anybody point out? I mean, Lauren Boebert was 15 during 9/11. We're old enough to remember that it happened, certainly. But to say, all right, well, when 9/11 happened, we didn't ban planes. We didn't ban planes. That's true. But then again, nobody's saying we should ban guns now, except Armando. But, do you remember as a 15-year-old? We did, actually. I mean, for a moment there, we said, that's it, no planes. There was what they called the nationwide ground stop, right? And no planes that took off inbound for the United States from international flights were allowed. Everybody go to Canada. Poor bastards. You had to absorb all the possible terrorists, but you were not afraid. But no planes allowed. There was nothing flying. That was the strangest part of the whole thing. One of the most striking parts about it was the silence of no planes in the sky. And it lasted for a while. I mean, it wasn't very long, a couple of days before they started letting limited flights go again. But it was a big famous thing. Thousands of people remember it personally because they were stranded wherever they were. They were on their way somewhere to or from some place on a flight, and they ended up in some city they didn't mean to be in, and they stayed there for a couple of days. They were grounded. But yeah, we did stop all flights, and we took a while to figure out what was going on, and it was a big deal. And you were, I guess, too young to remember it. I'm sure you know about 9/11, but obviously you forgot about what we did. And of course, lots of people pointed out the favorite go-to there was everybody said, it's 15 years after that one guy, we're still taking our shoes off every time we want to fly. That's a broader statement would be, but you know what nobody is saying, I guess? After 9/11, we didn't ban all planes. No, but, no one ever says, you know what never changed after 9/11? You know what stayed exactly the same? And this is really weird because you'd think it would have changed. Flying. No extra security, no nothing. You can still walk up to the gate to say goodbye to people, bring, wrapped birthday presents on board. I remember just the other day I brought 4.0 ounces of liquid on a plane. And I was like, shouldn't you be limiting me to 3.4 ounces? Why aren't you doing that? Take my shoes off. Naked body scanners, enhanced screening. If you happen to be brown or wear the wrong clothing, into the room for 6 hours before your flight for intense interrogation. No fly lists. Stayed exactly the same, right? I mean, terrible analogy, but she's a terrible person and a terrible thinker on top of it all. Anyway, that was all pretty interesting to me. I don't know where she was giving this interview. She had all this. I wondered whether she was making product placement arrangements. She's at Talbot Farm, I guess. There's a big sign here. It says Talbot's Cider and then a Talbot Farms and all of the Talbot Farm products, salad dressing, ciders, vinegars, etc., on the shelves behind her. I don't know if that's a local store or she gets paid to put Talbot's products in her house. She, of course, famous for doing Zoom conferences during the pandemic, which she decorated the shelves behind her backdrop with all of her guns. And I was just wondering, since she's so into this comparison with 9/11, surely she has the constitutional right to do this, and she stands up for the Constitution and exercises her rights even when it's unpopular. Will she be decorating at any point the shelves behind her on a Zoom call with box cutters and photos of Osama bin Laden and Mohammed Atta and others? Probably not, because she would probably, believe it or not, she'd probably understand that that's in poor taste. And taunting people with horrific, traumatic memories of 9/11 is really no better than taunting people with horrific memories of any one of the bazillions of mass shootings that have been going on. That's another thing, too, right? Oh, we never stopped all the planes. We didn't ban planes after 9/11. That's true. But, you never walk around and say, you remember that time that the terrorists flew planes into all the buildings and killed all those people? No one ever has to say, which one? Which one do you mean? The Aurora movie theater? The Columbine? Parkland? Which one are you talking about? No one gets confused about which 9/11 you mean, which is another reason it's a bad comparison. All right, well, look, that's the segment of the show. That's the chit-chat of the same thing that's been going on for 3 days, but it's a traumatic event, and we can't believe that we still don't know what happened, and that the police turn out to be not a great investment for funding, and people are coming around to the sort of thinking about things. People I've seen propose, defund those particular police, the ones who said, I'm afraid to go because I might get shot, or other people saying, if it turns out that this really is the case, that they really weren't, they just didn't go because something, or they were waiting for the border patrol to do something about it, maybe the defund the police people are right after all. And gee whiz, wouldn't that be something if the dirty effing hippies turned out to be right the whole time? Of course, no one really thinks that we should have zero community police of any kind, but clearly we could do without the SWAT teams touring during the school day. They're not going to do anything. All right, well, there's more to digest on this story, the other stories, a million things happening in the big city, the small towns, whatever it is, naked or otherwise. We'll tell you about it.
Sup, fam? It's your boy Darwin, aka Darwin_Darko, aka the most reasonable man in America, aka KITM's senior black correspondent. You might remember me from such recordings as Spacemen vs. Space Cadets and We Need to Talk About Joe Biden. Today, I want to bring you good news about that thing you've been struggling with. Do you suffer from giving too much of a damn? Do you turn on the series of tubes and find yourself outraged at the particular way some news organization strung some sentences together only to realize, nope, this is not some fictional hellscape? Well, guess what? You no longer have to accept the life of giving too much of a damn. You can do something about it, because even you, yes you, can be a show contributor. Now I know what you're thinking. Hey, Mr. Most Reasonable Man in America, I'm not some professional podcast talking guy. Don't worry about it. Do you have a smartphone or some other electronic recording device? Well, that's all you need. You too can have a segment where you can read us an important article and give us your take. Read one of your own original essays, or even just give us your commentary on something you'd like to share that's important to you. Fair warning though, side effects may include general punditry, having opinions and hot takes, getting stuff off your chest, and hearing your own voice. If your recording lasts longer than 5 to 7 minutes, please consult kagrox@gmail.com. That's KAGROX@gmail.com.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Net Roots Radio. I should also point out that the NRA annual meeting, convention, whatever they call it, is happening now. It starts today, I think. And hey, it starts in Texas. And this is, I think, the second time. Is this the second time that the NRA convention has happened not only in close proximity in time to a major mass shooting, but also in space? I wish it would happen in space, but that is in close proximity. What? I said close time proximity. Temporally, I guess. But nearby the site of a shooting. And didn't they move it once? I can't even remember now. But that's the point we were making earlier. I remember pretty well which 9/11 you're talking about, but I can't remember which reaction to which mass shooting that was supposed to be the end-all, be-all at the time. Anyway, yeah, they're going ahead with their convention in Texas. I understand from seeing tweets fly by that I didn't grab and save that the teachers' unions are planning on protesting, which is a fine thing to do. Everybody should be protesting there. A lot of the entertainment has pulled out. The one name that stuck with me is, well, I guess it didn't stick with me. Is it, how come I can't remember? Okay, I'll look it up. Anyway, yes, okay, all right. It's Don McLean, the American Pie singer. Apparently, I don't really know why, but he was lined up to sing at the NRA convention. I assume that the connections facile and the NRA was like, well, American. So it doesn't really matter what the rest of the song is. Just as they, constantly play Born in the USA at Republican rallies. And if you really stop and listen, you're supposed to understand that this probably isn't really a super Republican song. I don't know. I never analyzed it. I never analyzed American Pie either. But anyway, they were going to have him sing. And he said, I'm not going. Which... this may also not mean that Don McLean is any kind of super liberal either. I mean, really, honestly, if you're a super liberal and you get the call, will you come and sing at the NRA convention? Even if you're like, well, whatever money I can get kind of guy, you're probably saying, NRA, I'm busy that day. I'm washing my guns. I can't be there. But whatever. But this time, of course, it's like, bad time. I don't really want to be the entertainment at an NRA convention in Texas 3 days after a mass shooting. And not just any mass shooting, a real biggie. And one where all the cops, the good guys with the guns, didn't do anything, for instance. Anyway, a couple of other acts pulled out too, and I don't even know who they are. They're listed, they're on the news somewhere. Everybody said, I want out too, which is a wise thing to do. I'm sure Kid Rock or whatever is still booked, but there you go. I just thought I would make mention of that. People should be protesting. I don't know. The teachers' unions, of course, have really good cause to be there doing that, and as a union. Although it'll be interesting because the backlash to it among people who you'll never convince anyway will be like, well, unions, teachers' unions. I heard they're all corrupt because I listened to Fox News, et cetera, et cetera. So really, I mean, teachers probably ought to be I'm in a teachers' union, but I'm just here as a regular person. I'm not here as a union representative. I'm here to tell you this stuff is crazy, and you trying to stick a gun in my hand. What you really need is a collection of Texas teachers going not necessarily as union members, but also going as gun owners and saying, by the way, don't try to be like, oh, well, I'll give you a couple $100 to carry your gun in class. That's not smart. That is a dumb thing to do, and I know that because I listen to Kagro in the morning, or follow the Gun Fail series, or follow him on Twitter, and I have come to understand this. But there needs to be some discussion about that. Newt Gingrich apparently put himself on TV yesterday. What did I call him when I was referring to him yesterday? I can't remember. I gave him some dumb nickname or other. Anyway, he went on TV to advocate again for the armed guard thing. Although his angle on it was, we should pay teachers $500 a month extra if they're gun owners to go get some training and to carry their guns. 5 to 10 armed teachers in every school was his plan. Which again, if you want to just look at the money, if you could just assume that the whole thing was going to be safe somehow, even though, no, you can't. Teachers have already tried that. Teachers have already shot themselves, shot the toilets, broken all the rules, etc. It's an old idea. He's an old idiot, so naturally he would have the idea again and dredge it up again. But no, also billions and billions of dollars. So by the way, yeah, we have Newt Gingrich and all the conservatives votes for billions and billions of dollars worth of extra teacher pay now. Is that right? And by the way, I wouldn't oppose his idea of having 5 to 10 armed teachers in the room next time Newt Gingrich says that all public school teachers are pedophiles and groomers. That might be worth having. But that's a new one on me. Arm the pedophile groomers. But it's really not new because they've actually said it 100 times. And we've even pointed this out before. It's a very odd thing for them to try to do. But that's what they're doing. Because they're odd people. Terrible people, as a matter of fact. Let's see. A note from Ricky the Canuckistani, our Canadian friend. We have several. Of course, we have a huge Canadian contingent there. And they would even have been willing to provide the donuts for the police, I think, if we had asked ahead of time. But Ricky says that she knows the answer. It was 5 days before American airspace was reopened after 9/11. So a 5-day ban on all the flights. So it really did happen. It took a long time. People were stuck for quite a while. It was rather amazing. Oh, a mighty OCD tells us that that Variety tweets that Lee Greenwood has pulled out of the NRA concert in Houston. That's pretty amazing too. Isn't he the proud to be an American guy? That's his song that gets him all the money. But songwriting, movies, songs, things that there are intellectual property rights, and you're a genius if you figure out the formula. Like Lee Greenwood figured that out. That's right. It is him, right? Proud to be an American. I better look this up. I don't know about that song. I think that's him, though. I mean, I think that name has stuck with me because of that. And I mean, like I said, genius move, whether you believe it or not. A song like that is going to get played at every Republican everything. And you're going to get paid, Donald Trump. It just occurs to me, Republicans are famous for, of course, stealing the intellectual property rights and not paying you. But technically, you'd have a claim for it, and maybe your lawyers are pretty good at it. So if you're getting, 30 cents on the dollar out of it, it's still pretty good. But I was just thinking about that. And if you're smart, you write a Christmas song. Even if you're Jewish, write a Christmas song, because there's radio stations every year that start in August. And they start playing Christmas music, nothing but Christmas music, and they're dying for variety. It doesn't matter how terrible your song is. It will get in the rotation. If it's good, you make a mint. But, whatever. Re-record an old thing. You're going to have to pay for the rights to the person who wrote the song, true, but whatever. You'll get in the rotation. And I got to look into this, but what you really want to do is get together a cast of people who are no longer working on soap operas and make a Christmas movie about saving a town or anything. I don't know. I can't write. I can't write it, but you don't have to write it. 15 minutes or so, pen and paper. This is a huge insult to the people who write these things. But the movies are terrible. You'll be on the Hallmark Channel year round. That's the point. And at and the Christmas time, forget it. The marathon of movies. Doesn't matter what the plot is. It's Christmas in the town where they make Lipton cup of soup. And kids aren't buying Lipton cup of soup these days. It's hard times economically, don't you see? We're going to close the Lipton cup of soup factory. Unless something Christmas and you fall in love. There you go. So I'm now rich. I don't know how much money they get. Maybe it's not a whole lot. Maybe people slave over their scripts, and the actors agonize over their performances. I'm a method actor. Get me some Lipton. This isn't hot enough. I don't know. But it seems to me like it's all okay. Well, anyway, Lee Greenwood, God bless you. Proud to be an American, but not proud enough to go to the NRA convention. And that's a real score, honestly, to get him to say, I'm not proud to be one of you guys. That's really impactful, and that's the way we ought to be selling it. No longer proud to be among NRA members. Proud to be an American, just not your kind. That's really something. So that's quite a coup. Thanks for providing us with that information. Go tweet that out, please, and make that point, because I'm really busy, and I gotta do the rest of this show. Okay, I said we would probably move on to some other things. Oh, yes, the other meme that you should be distributing here. Don't know if this one made it onto the show yesterday or was just tweeted after the show. I'm watching everybody complaining about Manchin and Sinema refusing to budge on the filibuster. I was actually complaining about yesterday about all the reporters wasting their time asking them, well, but now will you move on the filibuster? And how odd it was that they knew that the answer was still going to be no, but they kept asking that question. But they won't ask questions of other sorts, that are maybe more important, where they know they're just going to not get an answer. So, we stopped trying. But anyway, Manchin and Sinema, I believe, should be referred to. I think the comparison is reasonably decent. These two are the Uvalde cops of the Senate, right? They're not going to do anything. There's an emergency. We're going to stay out here and not do anything. Call me when everybody's dead, and then I'll go in. And that's a big help, right? And when it's too late, Manchin and Sinema might be around to help us do something. But in the meantime, you need assistance. That's not me. I can't help you. Oh, yes. One of the other killer memes I saw circulated yesterday. I wonder if I can actually credit it. Maybe I should come back to it later on when I can scroll around and get it. But somebody scored big, in my opinion, with I should go back this way too. They grabbed the blue line flag, the thin blue line flag. And by the way, that blue line is looking thinner than ever. Oh, not the people on it, of course. It's a thicker blue line than usual. And maybe even more so in Uvalde. But the thin blue line flag, that is the American flag that they render in black and white. They take all the red, white, and blue out. Well, they don't take the white out, but take the red and blue out and throw in some black. The black and white flag, and then one of the stripes, the white stripes, I guess, is turned blue for the thin blue line. And, of course, now they've jazzed it up even more because you're an awesome killing machine. Obviously, cops are killing machines. Here we are. Yeah, Internet Hippo, a very famous, funny account out there who said, sorry, but they have to change the flag now. And he grabs that one that is the thin blue line flag, which I guess, and then they put the Punisher skull on it now. That's the cop flag. And it's been replaced with the, I don't know which emoji this is, but the sort of like, poor me, I can't do anything. Big, shining eyes, teary-eyed and like pointing the fingers at one another, like twiddling your thumbs and sitting around. Nothing I can do. Anyway, I thought that was fantastic and right on the money. And well done there. And no more Punisher flags for you guys. No more thin blue line, yada, yada. I just, the cops have just really, I guess, figuratively shot themselves in the foot nationwide. And they're not going to be able to point and say, well, that's them. We're brave. We always go in. That's probably not going to work for quite a while. Till we see it happen someplace. All right. Really, time to move on to some other items here. But I'll include for you the reading, the Washington Post, and yeah, I guess who else has a timeline? I thought I put two different timelines away, but I thought they were both from the Washington Post, actually. I guess so. But at any rate, as timeline emerges, police criticized for response to school massacre. I would read through the report for you now, but we've just done an hour on screaming about how terrible the response was. So if you'd like to read in more detail from a more responsible reporter what happened, that might be the place to go. All right, let's see. The other thing, oh yes, one more bit of news at least that I'll share about this. It was yesterday I guess in the Lee Greenwood vein, I would say, a very strange demonstration of solidarity here. The New York Yankees had a game scheduled against the Tampa Bay Rays and made an extraordinary decision. Greg sent me a screen grab of what went up on the TV last night. It says here, like on Yankee blue backdrop. I guess if you tuned in for the big Yanks-Rays game, it's probably not a huge game in May, but whatever. But, regular viewer of the New York Yankees, or Tampa Bay Rays for that matter, but New York Yankees, because that's all American sounding, you'd find this message. It says, in lieu of game coverage and in collaboration with the Tampa Bay Rays, we will be using our channels to offer facts about the impacts of gun violence, the devastating events that have taken place in Uvalde, Buffalo, and countless other communities across our nation, are tragedies that are intolerable. That's the first screen. And then they spent the night sharing facts about gun violence there and on their Twitter feeds. The Rays did the same thing. I mean, that's a pretty major deal. And that would have been a major inconvenience to people who have, paid. Remember, these are like pay-per-view channel, kind of not pay-per-view, but subscription channels. I signed up because I want to see every Yankees game. And they said, you know what? We're going to make you uncomfortable tonight. Like it or not, something serious has gone on. Something more serious than a Yankees-Rays game in late May, certainly. And we're gonna show you something you need to see. What a programming decision. There was a little bit of backlash and criticism, not from people who are gun nuts and were angry about it, but from people who supported the idea but then said, well, what you really need to do is promise never to give any more money to Republicans who won't stand for any gun safety reform legislation. True. All true. One step at a time, I guess, but you should pressure them for that as well. This was pretty remarkable, and it was written up in the New York Times, apparently the hometown paper around this, what do they call them? Yankees club that gets together and plays baseball every once in a while. So let's see, David Waldstein, not me, not anyone related to me. It's not the same name, but at any rate, wrote this up. Yankees and Rays ignore game to discuss gun violence. Really a remarkable thing. And like I said, in the vein of the Lee Greenwood thing, like, oh my gosh, that's serious. It prompted me to switch my allegiances. I was back on board with President Basketball the other day when the NBA, I forget exactly what they did, but did something also in solidarity over this issue, and likewise said that they were going to be heightening focus through whatever, NBA PR activities on gun violence. But now I'm with President Baseball, or at least for the moment. So thank you, President Baseball, for taking the lead and doing something real here, at least to get us talking. Speaking, though, of the previous president, that would be President Basketball, there's also President Basketball face Donald Trump, who is back in the news because he can't stop criming or talking about crimes. He also, by the way, he'll be, I think, addressing the NRA convention. Lee Greenwood, no. Donald Trump, yes, because Donald Trump can't resist. And also, he's very slow-moving in terms of reaction to things. But he's in the news with CNN for, I don't know, some kind of crime. And here's the crime. Exclusive, you can't find it anywhere else, or you couldn't at the time anyway. Caitlin Polentz for CNN, exclusive, DOJ interviews Georgia Republicans about interactions with Trump campaign in fake elector probe. This goes in about 9 different directions than I thought it would. Even as I'm reading the headline, I think they know where they're going, and it goes somewhere else. It's very interesting. They interactions with the Trump campaign. The Trump campaign engaged Georgia Republicans outside the school. Or maybe it didn't at all. And we're changing our story. What is the story as it now stands? Federal investigators have interviewed Republicans in Georgia about interactions with people in former President Donald Trump's orbit. And a lot of things orbit around Donald Trump. He's got a tremendous gravitational pull. And his 2020 re-election campaign, as the Justice Department's sprawling probe examines efforts to put forth alternate slates of electors to displace Joe Biden electors in battleground states Trump lost. You know, we know this part. But in one case, FBI agents asked a prominent Georgia Republican whether he had direct conversations with Trump. They just asked, who talked to me? If anyone from the Trump campaign had been in touch with me. Did Giuliani talk to me? Did Trump talk to me? Said Patrick Gartland, who was set to serve as an elector, but dropped out. He recounted how 2 FBI agents visited his home in Marietta, Georgia, a few weeks ago. Investigators have sought answers this month from Gartland and others connected to the GOP in Georgia, the GOP, as we like to call it, both in FBI interviews and in grand jury subpoenas for documents and testimony. Investigators are looking at whether the Trump campaign played a role in the submission of false election certificates, according to people approached by the Justice Department. Of course they did, but, you know, the job is to find the proof that they did, that you can lay on the table in a courtroom and say, there, not just David knows, and not just everybody knows, but now even if you think it's not true, you know it because it's proved to you here. The federal probe's focus on Georgia and Trump's electors there has not been previously reported. The DOJ has charged hundreds of rioters who stormed the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. And by the way, I'm trying to shorten articles these days I'm going to cut out it was in 2021. I know. I'm going to save the syllables here and there. Not now. I just blew them all in explaining this, but you get the idea. So they've charged hundreds of rioters, yes, and in recent months, investigators have broadened their scope, seeking information about people in more politically connected circles. Ginny Thomas. Achoo. I didn't do a very good job in disguising that, but you get the idea. The subpoenas issued to Gartland and others are seeking communications with, quote, any member, employee, or agent of Donald J. Trump or of any organization advocating in favor of the 2020 re-election of Donald J. Trump, including his official campaign. That'd be the main one, I guess. The subpoenas also seek any communications with more than 24 named Trump campaign officials, attorneys, and Georgia electors. CNN reported Wednesday that a recent subpoena related to the alternate electors sought communications with Trump lawyer Rudy Giuliani, Trump campaign lawyer Justin Clark, right-wing attorney John Eastman, and others. A question hanging over the Georgia GOP and the Trump campaign has been whether electors put together fake slates to fraudulently override Biden's win in the Electoral College, or if they believed they were submitting alternate slates in case Trump's court challenges were successful. No court allowed Trump to overturn election results. A spokesman for Trump did not respond to a request for comment. No one has been charged with the crime in connection with the alternate slates of electors. And I know they have that explanation. Well, we just thought just in case. And they'll all say that. That's true. But I think in combination with the fact that John Eastman was telling them, no, you can just switch. You don't have to wait for a court to tell you. You can just grab the papers you prefer and read those instead, and no one can stop you. And I don't know. I mean, it'll be very interesting because they probably told some people, well, they probably did tell some alternate electors, yeah, you can just grab the papers and read those. And some people said, awesome, I'm in. And others, they were more Lee Greenwood, Don Mclean like. And they said, oh, well, I don't agree to that. And they might have then said, well, how about this? We'll just use your name if we win in court and the whole thing is thrown into question. Then we'll have alternate electors there, and then Georgia won't be just not counted in the Electoral College. You definitely want to be represented, but they'll only use your name if a court says it's okay. All right, well, in that case, I'll sign. That might have worked. And that's what they have to determine. And it might be different for different people. I don't know. A special grand jury in Georgia's Fulton County is also investigating Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election, including the fake electors. This is separate from the federal probe. That would probably be the people looking to find out what role did the Trump campaign have in spreading the false rumors that Fulton County was somehow rigging the vote for Biden. And they might even be looking at, was there a crime committed that we can charge somebody with here with the calls to Brad Raffensperger, etc. Let's see, where were we? The federal subpoenas have been issued to Republicans with a commonality. The people who were set to serve as electors for Trump in 2020, but ultimately backed out. It's interesting that they're subpoenaing them, and you might say, well, why bother the people who backed out as opposed to questioning the people who said they were all in? And the answer is probably because they're guessing that the people who backed out because they saw that there was something wrong with this, and they might actually talk to investigators, certainly a lot faster than they could compel hostile testimony from people who stayed all in. Anyway, Gartland had been a state elector until he became an election board official in 2020 and stepped down from the elector job because it was a possible conflict of interest. Oh, that's interesting. He didn't back out because he thought the scheme was bad. The FBI asked Gartland about the episode. He told the FBI he didn't want to have direct contact with anyone in the Trump campaign. But hey, I'm nobody, he joked in an interview with CNN. Okay, and I threw in something I didn't mean to say want to. He said he didn't have direct contact. And the reason was he's nobody, he says. FBI agents have also spoken with Jason Shepard, another former Georgia GOP party official, multiple times this month, asking if he had any conversations with Trump campaign officials after the election. Gartland asked Shepard to fill his spot as an elector, but Shepard did not ultimately serve in the role. He said he, too, received a subpoena for documents dating back to October 1st, 2020, and to testify before the federal grand jury this month. They were asking about the campaign and the slate in Georgia, trying to figure out what I may have had access to and been privy to, Shepard told CNN. Shepard said he did not have any documents to turn over, but he encouraged the federal investigators to subpoena other state party officials. That's interesting. He said the electors who did serve may have thought they were helping the Trump administration and the Republican Party. I'm sure they did think that. The devil really has to be in the minutia and the details. Both of them, apparently, Shepard said. The devil can be in two places at once, except those are actually the same place. So anyway, the three other Georgia GOP or GOP electors backed out of the slate, apparently, before January 6th last year. I said the three. These are the three. Three of them in total, in addition to Shepard and Garland. All right, now I've lost the track. I guess three in total. Shepard, Garland. Who's the other one? They don't say. Oh, no, in addition. Okay, so there were five who changed out. They either didn't respond to CNN's inquiries or declined to comment. Shepard was not asked specifically about communications with Trump, he said, adding he wouldn't have had any to report anyway. So, okay, just another angle on the investigation, a little less interesting than I thought it would be given the headline. Let's see. Top of the hour break coming. I'll have to save this for later. This is a very interesting development. I will tease you with that one, and we'll wait until after. And then maybe let's read a little bit just for filling in the blank time here from the New York Times, going back to Uvalde. I just like seeing the headline and discussion about it. Mike Baker and Dana Goldstein in the New York Times writing under the headline of Uvalde had prepared for school shootings. It did not stop the rampage. Just generally, I think that a large part of the discussion really has to be, we tried every stupid thing other than dealing with the actual guns that Republicans suggested. Every time this happened, they cried, you can't do the guns, you got to do something else. We've tried every friggin' thing you've come up with, and none of it works. And we should acknowledge that. I don't know whether it necessarily means we certainly won't convince anybody on your side to do something about the guns. And I don't know that that's necessarily the solution, but everything points to that being the solution. And we have no evidence that it isn't the solution because we've never really tried anything. In fact, there's pretty good evidence from the time we had the assault weapons ban that maybe it would be a good idea. But the point is, every stupid thing that Ted Cruz comes up with, debate champion that he is, has been tried and we've seen it fail, and it's time for you to acknowledge that. But that's not their MO. They just duck it every time. We'll be right back. Okay, is this working at last? Wow, I had to press the mute button like 19 times to get it right. And the more times I realized, hey, that didn't work, the more upset about it I became. And I press it weird and it's just not working. All right, well, anyway, we're back. You didn't miss anything. It was a couple of seconds. I'm not going to read through the entire New York Times article. You know very well that they said they had prepared for school shootings. They did all kinds of things. Regular lockdown and emergency drills, just like every school in America is doing. The SWAT team thing is particularly annoying, yes, but, that's not unique. But if you want to, I'll include this article in the roundup. You'll have something to read over the weekend, just so you have the particulars in front of you about what things have been tried, so you can debate that appropriately, should the subject come up at any point. Okay. Let's see. There are a couple other things that I wanted to share with you. Just for a total change of direction, this seems like a pretty good idea and something that I should alert you to before the weekend. Let's see. Oh, boy. I have to deal with some text messages. All right. I got to hang on, everybody. Thank you. Some dead air while I'm presidenting. Oh, boy. Not everybody knows that I'm doing my podcast at this moment, and they text me with important business. And, of course, everybody wants the text, in case you're interested, is, couldn't I please sign these documents and arrange for a person to pick them up before 11? Nope. No, I couldn't do that. I'm actually busy exactly until 11, but also it's 10. Right now, so probably not. Anyway, what I need to do is inform you people of these things. And here's what it is. This is an odd story. It's in Fox News. That's not the odd part. Although it is odd that they would report it. I think, in a way. And it's not brand new. It was published on May 5th. But I want, I'll start reading it. You'll recognize the importance of it. Background here, what do I always harp on about Ukraine? Not that there happens to be a war there at the moment. That's Greg's job. I harp right along with him, of course. My thing about Ukraine is always what got Trump impeached over in Ukraine. And the other missing part of the background that I still can't get everybody in America to pay attention to, and it's a huge tragedy, that the whole stupid tape exchange where Kevin McCarthy blurts out that he thinks Putin pays Trump, that wasn't really the important part of the conversation. In my view, it was that the conversation was really, it started all about all the Republican leaders talking about how they had just visited with the then Prime Minister of Ukraine, who had come to Washington, D.C., flew all the way to Washington, D.C. in, June of 2016. Trump had not yet secured the nomination, but it was looking increasingly likely. But this guy, the prime minister, had come all the way to D.C. to speak to the Republican leadership, because they were the majority at the time, and say horrible things are going on in Ukraine. First of all, we got invaded like 2 years ago. You're pretty aware of that, yes, but maybe Republicans don't know that. They weren't talking very much about that. But we didn't know how in bed with the Russians they really were at that point, I guess, but there was some indication. But it hadn't fully blown up. But they came to D.C. to tell them what the Russians were up to in Ukraine, that they had a massive disinformation campaign on, a huge propaganda campaign, in addition to the actual invasion, which they did remind them of, but also saying this is not just about Russians trying to dominate Ukraine again. This program is going on all over Europe, all over the world. Wherever there are liberal democracies operating, they're trying to undermine it. And it's probably happening right here in the United States right now as well, but certainly all over Western Europe and definitely in my country, and I think you should be aware of it. And from the nature of the conversation, you can tell that none of the sharper people in the conversation, and I mean, by comparison to Kevin McCarthy, sharper people really got that. I mean, they got that, boy, things are bad in Ukraine. But, some of them naturally came away with the impression that the United States, though, is doing everything it can to try and combat this, which is interesting because even then, at that point, it is the base assumption of Republican leadership that certainly the United States opposes Russian aggression and propaganda and disinformation campaigns designed to undermine European democracies. Of course they do. Now, not so sure. But anyway, meanwhile, McCarthy doesn't participate at all in this conversation, but they're going back and forth, and there was, I think the only one who actually says, no, the United States really isn't doing anything of the sort at the moment, is Kathy McMorris Rogers McBean there, who recognizes that, nope, there are things we should be doing, but that we're not doing. But then Kevin McCarthy misses the whole thing and says, Putin pays Trump. What? It's not about that, but interesting. Anyway, let's end this here because, duh. And please, let's keep it a secret. But, yeah, that was a bridge to revealing more of the Russian role in the United States. But anyway, nobody picked up on it. So this story, that is background to this story. Headline, Colombia's U.S. envoy warns of Russian interference on continent, probably his continent, South America, as he praises U.S.-Colombia ties. I mean, that's what a Colombian envoy to the United States will do, praising U.S.-Colombia ties. But they're not exactly known for praising ties with the United States, I don't think, the Colombians. But at any rate, that was kind of interesting. But what about the rest of it? The Colombian envoy speaks up and gets himself into Fox News somehow, warning of Russian interference in South America and trying to, warm up the ties with the United States, like maybe you could help us combat this in some way. Wow, South America, I bet you weren't looking there. But apparently it is an international thing for the Russians, and maybe we should be aware of it and paying some attention to it. And if you want, you can even say, aha, Mitt Romney was right. Okay, all right, yeah, we shouldn't have made as much fun of him as we did, except he's eminently mockable. And don't forget, while I'm supposed to give him credit for being right, and I feel sorry for you for having been mocked at saying Russia is our biggest geopolitical threat. That seems to be right. But at the other hand, you like this. I don't know if I can ever get past the Benghazi smirk. You thought you were going to win the election because, people got killed. I can use that. So I think that outweighs everything. Anyway, Colombia's ambassador to the United States warned Tuesday, and remember this is from back on May 5th, warned Tuesday, so it's too late, that Russia has been meddling in the region and is threatening democracies there. He also extolled the U.S. relationship with his country and said it was important to further democratic values in the region. That seems true from an American perspective as well. In an interview with Fox News Digital, I didn't realize that was a different, division, but in an interview with them, Ambassador Juan Carlos Pinzon described how Russia, a country with a long and sordid history of negative involvement in Latin America, continues to use its influence through nefarious ways on the continent. Now, that's very slanted, of course, and it's political language. I generally agree with it, and lots of people will. And Fox, will carry that much. But this is a very traditionally conservative Republican view of things, right? To say Russia, a country with a long and sordid history of negative involvement in Latin America. Can anybody think, I don't want to turn this into a, America bashing, because we are rightly here for some Russia bashing, but America has a long and sordid history of negative involvement in Latin America, and the Latin Americans know it very well. And very often, what it really means is, and it's another lesson in the enemy of the enemy. The enemy of my enemy is my friend is not really a thing, because of the long and sordid history of negative involvement in Latin America by the United States. Latin Americans very frequently said, well, who can we get help from? We need help. Who can we get help from that, one, will work as help, and two, will send a message to the United States that we are angry with you? And the answer was the Soviet Union and Russia. So, it was pretty natural. But then, as it turns out, I guess in a rather painful lesson, at least to some in Latin America, it turns out that the Russians were kind of in it for themselves too, not because they, in fact, stood in international socialist solidarity with Latin America. But okay, anyway, that's the larger lesson. Latin Americans, I guess, have woken up to this to some extent, and that's a good thing. So, Pinzon goes on to tell Fox News Digital, they remind us again, Russia has been trying to be in the region, trying to influence, frankly speaking, in a malign way, our democracies through cyber attacks, through misinformation. And that's something we care about because there are regimes in the region like the one of Maduro in Venezuela or Ortega's in Nicaragua that somehow have allowed their territories for such kinds of threats. And yeah, they've long been suspected of having closer ties to Russia, both traditionally because they might have in the past sought their support from the Soviet Union, and also because it continues to antagonize the United States, and they have an interest in doing that. Pinzon, who was a guest speaker at the Mclean Institute Global Conference in Los Angeles this week, not a great place to be, but would Lee Greenwood play there? I don't know. We'll find out. Anyway, he warned of Russia's nefarious actions on the continent and described how it has been playing an especially problematic role in Venezuela and Nicaragua. I'm going to give it a little accent there. You like that? He said, the Russians have set up, very little accent. The Russians have set up information and cyber capabilities that he said, quote, somehow affected the politics in the region, including one in my own country. And I guess that's probably what he's really upset about. Colombians go to the polls later this month. I guess that would be about now because it's pretty late in the month. Maybe they just did it. Later this month to elect a new president and there are growing concerns that Russia has already started a campaign of interference. In March, a senior administration official told reporters on the eve of the Colombian president's visit to the White House that this was an area of concern, and noted that Colombia had expressed significant concerns at the level of disinformation, clearly or apparently directly from Russia into Colombia. The U.S. official also noted that the U.S. was helping its South American ally with technical assistance to help with an increase in cyber attacks. According to the Voice of America's reporting, there were more than 50,000 detected attacks against the web platform of Colombia's National Voter Registry in the lead-up to its parliamentary elections in March. Wow. One of the countries that has been at the center of Russia's malign influence has been Venezuela, which has spent billions in securing its presence there. What? I'm not certain where that sentence was going. Has Russia spent billions in securing its presence in Venezuela? I guess that's the only thing that makes sense. Venezuelans are pretty secure in their presence in Venezuela, I would guess. Venezuela shares a border with Colombia, and following years of political turmoil, corruption, and involvement in narco-terrorism, the former oil-rich country's economy has all but... Economy, I'm giving that now Spanish influence. Economy has all but collapsed, leading to a mass exodus, which, according to UN estimates, is close to 6 million, 2 million of whom have fled to Colombia. Again, a little bit of news, Fox News slant there, but I think you can see through it. Pinzon said it's important for democracy to return to Venezuela, which I'm sure they would say, simply cannot happen under the current regime, that Maduro makes it impossible to return to democracy. That's, I guess, probably ultimately what this grousing is about, but okay. But he says it's important for democracy to return to Venezuela. He told Fox News Digital, in our opinion, what matters is to keep the clear objective as a tough idea, which is bringing back democracy to Venezuela. Let's not give any benefit or opportunity to autocrats or to those who have violated human rights or to those who are being related to criminal activities, including drug trafficking. That's not a problem in Colombia, though, thankfully. Let's make sure that any negotiation is to the benefit of the Venezuelan people and to bring back democracy. All right. I mean, for what it's worth, I'd love for them to have democracy, and I think they would like it too. Pinzon said the best way to prevent illegal immigration from there, that's an interesting problem for them to have, is to have a prosperous Latin America. If we can bring prosperity to Latin America, investment, jobs, security, a stable democracy, strong institutions, we will not see such a level of migration. I don't know that that's actually true, but it's an argument. I mean, I think we'll probably see that level of immigration anyway because of various, other natural disasters, climate change, etc. I think not much is going to change that. But you shouldn't exacerbate it with political difficulties too, although they'll create their own political difficulties. But yes, generally speaking, if they had a lot more money and better, stronger, more resilient infrastructure and an open democratic society, presumably it would prevent some of this migration. But then again, I'm actually not somebody who says, yeah, migration, that's such a huge problem. It's a problem that we, to pay for making sure that everybody has a decent life when they get here and has what they need, and we don't increase any tensions in our country and we tamp down on them where we do see them. But, migration, not the same kind of triggering effect for the word as, I guess, the rest of the audience of Fox News Digital. Anyway, he noted that the continent has 1 billion people, South America, a wealth of natural resources, and all it needs is the proper investment and support to make it prosper. Probably some other stuff, too. And probably a lot of that money, to be fair, probably goes to Pinzon and people like him because he's among the political elite in the country, and that's usually where the money ends up when you invest it anywhere, here or elsewhere. Pinzon heralded the 200-year-old relationship Colombia has with the United States. I think that the U.S. Colombia operation is the most important in the Western Hemisphere. Of course, he would be a little biased toward that. We have fought together drug traffickers, criminals, and I think we will need to continue to do that because, unfortunately, these drugs continue to increase its presence. His English is not fantastic, but it's pretty good. Certainly a million times better than my Spanish, but you understand if it does come across a little awkward. He also noted that the U.S. has a big role to play, noting how it's a major consumer of illegal drugs. And you right to point all of that out too. By the way, he's being done no favors by the writers at Fox News Digital here either. He concluded, we need to work together, those who produce and those who have the consumption, and by doing that, really confronting the malign funds that are the entry to derail the economy, derail democracy, and somehow affect the possibility of the well-being of our region. In March, President Biden announced that he was designating Colombia as a major non-NATO ally. That status brings with it certain benefits in the fields of defense, trade, and security cooperation. The announcement came during a meeting with Colombia's president, Iván Duque. Okay, so that, I believe, we've reached the end of the... Of course, the most important point in all of this, to me, was the warning of Russian influence in South America. Not something I'd been thinking about. Now, it might not be necessarily true. It might be a great way to get intelligence infrastructure invested in Colombia, which may or may not have anything to do with detecting Russian influence, but maybe more about consolidating and holding on to power in Colombia. Possibly. I don't know. But I'm awake to the possibility, and I'm open to it being a possibility and something to be looked into. And it would corroborate all my priors, I guess, about what Russia's up to here and around the world. So something to keep an eye on and be aware of. But okay, also take with a grain of salt, perhaps, in formulating policy down in South America. But of some interest. All right, well, something to think about and keep in mind. Good Friday material, I think. Let's see. Other things to share with you here. Oh, yes. Let me check out what else he's got here. But Patrick Snyder has been listening for ages and suggesting stories, of course, for ages. And for some reason, I don't know what it is. Maybe we got to come up with a red explosion avatar for you or something like that to use on Twitter. But for some reason, I'm constantly getting stories from lots of people. And with Patrick, I'm getting these stories and saying, oh, yeah, we should totally do this. And then I never get to his stories. So let's see. He shared with me this very interesting thread right after the news broke from out of Uvalde, which was, he labeled here, here's a thread by someone with direct experience of human slaughter, which I didn't really mean to bring you back to that, but I really want to acknowledge, one, the value of that thread, and two, the value of Patrick's contributions, and there are a couple others that we should get to too. And I'll have to modify it a little bit. I know I said, like yesterday, the fun, exciting special of allowing Greg to go out unbleeped, both live and in the podcast, by the way. Apparently very popular. It was one of the bigger download days in recent memory. So, Greg, you should come on here and curse up a storm. I explained to him, by the way, I guess what's been in the back of my mind, why I continue to sort of self-censor about these things. One, of course, I always want to be able to use the reruns if, as part of a catalog, if a regular radio station ever wanted to use these things, where they would be in trouble for saying such things that you can get away with on podcasts. And two, my mom listens to the show. That's not such a big deal. She's heard me say things like that before. Likewise, I don't think she would necessarily be shocked, but as a point of reference, my rabbi sometimes listens to the show. That, I'm the president of that temple. I can't be, carelessly tossing these sorts of obscenities around, can I? I don't know. Maybe I would be impeached and my troubles would be over. Anyway, this guy, of course, likewise emotional about what's going on, begins his thread. I can't effing sleep tonight. I kept thinking about one of my last calls as an EMT after reading about cops not willingly putting themselves in harm's way. He's upset about these police officers. In August of 2001 is when he's talking about these things. I pulled my bus up just outside the PD police department cordon at the site of a domestic violence call. I think the bus he's talking about is not a bus, but is that like lingo for, is he a EMT, a ambulance driver? Anyway, he goes on to say, lots of nervous Barney Fife types with their hands on their pistols, taking cover behind their cars, filling the radio with useless traffic. Fire dispatch briefed me en route. Normally, no biggie. Treat the DV, domestic violence, the DV victim and victims, and transport. This MFer was a 1043. He actually just goes with MFer here, so that was helpful. Barricaded. 1043, I guess, is the code for it. Barricaded, probably armed, with hostages. I introduced myself to the on-scene commander, who looked the part. Lean, muscular, confident voice and demeanor, lots of service hash marks on his sleeve. I say looked the part because he sure as ass didn't act the way as the night went on. You see, even with 5 or 6 cops with him, not to mention probable cause to enter the domicile, he wouldn't. He wanted to wait for the county to send ESU. Is that, I don't know what, emergency services, I don't know what ESU, emergency services unit, I guess that sounds like SWAT or something like it. But those heavily armed meatheads would need an hour or more to spin up. Meanwhile, we waited and sweated. No negotiator, no ESU door kickers, couldn't even get a helo, lots of lingo, to spotlight the house. I asked, it says here, Sergeant M, I guess, why he couldn't move in with the cops he had. His answer blew me away and still makes me angry to this day. M didn't want to, quote, unnecessarily risk his officers. I was gobsmacked. Like, MFer, that badge means we all accept that risk. F it, I'll go. M told me to stand down. I told him to go F himself. We heard 2 shotgun blasts inside the house. 1. Pause. 2. I knew what that meant, given the math, but it never registered with M or his officers. I felt sick. I told him he needed to go in now so I could treat the hostages. He told me to stand down. ESU was on the move. 1 more shotgun blast. M's mouth kept opening and closing like a bass you just pulled out of the water. I told him I was going in because the risk was gone. M was right. I wasn't a law enforcement officer. I had no business going in, but deep down, I knew my bag wouldn't help any of the 3 people inside. In other words, of course, he gets to the scene. It's a gunman and 2 hostages. 3 shotgun blasts means he just shot the 2 hostages. The 3rd means he shot himself. It's now safe to go in. Of course, could be wrong, right? I mean, you want to be realistic about things. What if the 3rd shotgun blast had been out the back door at, cops he thought he saw there, and he's still very much alive and active? There is that. But anyway, the effing door wasn't even locked. And I was right. There was nothing I could do. The wife took a 10-gauge shell to the neck in the bedroom, bled out through her carotid. 3 or 4-year-old child must have been hiding in the bathroom when Dad got to them. DV Perp turned the shotgun on himself, but didn't manage to die right away. He was messy. He sounded like he was choking on his own blood. I wanted that kid to live more than any other patient I had in my time as an EMT, but I also knew that the answer was no. I still see that kid in my dreams now and again. I see them every time I read about a school massacre. I see the murdered child whose last thought was probably a fear that no one, let alone a effing goddamn child, should ever have. The perp? F him. Let him choke on his own blood. Yeah, I disregarded my training, but F that guy who just killed his family. M finally entered the house and asked why I wasn't treating the perp. Are you effing kidding me? Long story short, my report, I thought, was a verbal flamethrower that would tank M's career and any possible future as an LEO. Nothing effing happened because I was just an EMT. Oh, I'm a little late on the music here. I was just an EMT, not law enforcement. What could I possibly know? M is now the deputy chief of his department. He told a colleague that he speaks to on Twitter earlier that night, that some people who can't accept that their badge equals risking their own life aren't meant for police department, fire, EMS, etc. That's the job. I did accept that, but I also realized I had other issues to deal with unrelated to my EMT days. Hi, it's me, David Waldman, the same guy who was just talking to you a second ago. Our Patreon subscription drive is still going strong, with over 175 monthly donors who help keep us on the air. If we've helped keep you going during the pandemic, why not return the favor and help us keep going so we can all be together for the next disaster? Patreon.com, Patreon.com, makes it easy to make secure, recurring monthly contributions to support our show. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. Maybe you'd like to thank us for keeping you sane during the Trump era. Maybe you're looking forward to in-depth explanations of what's going on in the Biden administration. Whatever it is that keeps you listening, we need your help to keep bringing it to you. And hey, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running with those options too. Thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We literally could not do this without you. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. I realize that our pre-program break probably cut off the last bit of what I was talking about, but for the podcast, folks, everything will sound normal. I talked right up to the visual cue or the musical cue for the outro there, so it'll sound much better on the tape. But where we left off, by the way, we're reading the story from a Dan Kim, who you'll find on Twitter as Daniel M. Kim. And as he was saying, he was talking to a doctor colleague of his, that is a healthcare colleague of his, earlier tonight, the other day on the 26th, I guess. That would be yesterday, although he was probably up after midnight, probably talking about Wednesday, not Thursday. But talking to his friend and saying earlier tonight, some people who can't accept that their badge equals risking their own life maybe just aren't meant for these jobs. That is the job. I did accept that, but I also realized I had other issues to deal with unrelated to my EMT days, and continues on there. There was also a quick side trip to the World Trade Center a month later, and that only confirmed that my decision was/remains the correct one for me at that time. Then I read that LEOs, law enforcement officers, waited for backup in Uvalde while kids died, and this specific call came roaring back. I wouldn't wish that kind of memory on my worst enemy. I saw the child again, younger than yesterday's victims, but still a child. Then I picked up my kids from school and kept my utter and abject sense of relief to myself, hidden in anodyne questions about their day. But he returns to these thoughts. How effing dare you? I'll say it again. I don't give 1/10 of half an F. How dare you, you cowardly pieces of, crap who aren't worthy of the badges on your chest. He's a little angry about this. Children died because of your inaction. Children died while you waited for effing backup. Children died because you were either unable or unwilling to put your body between the perp, and I can't stress this enough, defenseless effing children whose only sin yesterday was to go to school wanting to learn and hang out with their friends. Now, typing this, all I can see is that child huddled between the tub and the toilet, hoping his dad wouldn't do the unthinkable. Then, seeing the results of what had been unthinkable. We all see the unthinkable on a weekly basis now, at least news of it. He says, it's time for that to change. This is macabre, but not new. If the victims' families agree, publish the crime scene photos. Let America see what their passion for unfettered gun ownership hath wrought. Maybe then we'd get common sense gun laws like background checks. Anyway, enough platitudes. I can't swallow another one without wanting to puke. F your thoughts and prayers. Politicians, you have the statutory power to do something about this scourge. Yet you do F all. Do it for children who just wanted to play during recess. Do it for folks shopping and socializing at a supermarket because racist zoning rules made that a gathering place. Do it for congregants at a synagogue, patients at a Planned Parenthood clinic. Do it for Asian salon workers in Atlanta and Dallas. Do it for your country, as alien as that concept might sound to you. Like The Onion says, after all such massacres, not mass shootings, these are massacres. No way to prevent this, says the only nation in the world where this regularly happens. And then he wraps it up with the gift from the Untouchables. Here endeth the lesson. Anyway, emotional, certainly, poignant, and pretty much what a lot of people are thinking. But I guess given the added experience with actually having witnessed these things, and bringing up the point of maybe it's time for us to see pictures of the crime scenes. I have seen the debate go back and forth on that, and others are saying, no, that's too much, that's exploitative, we don't need to see that. And there are many people who don't need to see that, that's true. It should certainly come with some sort of warning for people who don't want to see it for whatever reason, although some people should be made uncomfortable by it. I would guess it could possibly still help with them. But yeah, as far as the argument of no, we really shouldn't show that and we won't gain anything. Yeah, like Republicans, we've tried your way, and that doesn't appear to be working. Although, again, I'm not certain that the other thing is any kind of solution. And it may just end up traumatizing people to no end, I guess. Anyway, as I mentioned, there are a number of things that Patrick has sent our way. And I was just scrolling through the KITM hashtag to try and find some of the other things that he's sent lately so that I can share them with you. And then a couple of other things that other people have sent along the way. Not totally different direction. It is gun related. Patrick sending this thread on Scalia and the Heller decision, not to mention outright corruption on the court, condoned by the court. This is the tweet thread of Alex Aronson, managing director of the Georgetown Institute for Constitutional Advocacy and Protection. How do you like that? Alex sends this thread out on the bloodstained Supreme Court and its big gift to the gun lobby, D.C. versus Heller. We've certainly discussed that a number of times on the show, and what a magical incantation that was for them. Scalia's Heller opinion, Alex continues, invented an individual right to bear arms on a theory that Chief Justice Berger, called a fraud. And I've seen that quote now, done up in meme format and sent around a lot in the last couple of days. But here's a story showing just how big a fraud that case really was. I should like to share that with you, if you don't mind. Scalia famously loved hunting and took countless all-expenses-paid hunting trips during his time on the court, often on the undisclosed dime of gun lobbyists. In March of 2007, he went to Nuremberg. Yes, Nuremberg, Germany, for the NRA-funded World Forum for the Future of Sport Shooting Activities. I guess that's all you can get away with in Germany. You got to call it that. At the time, Heller was headed toward the court's docket. Justice Scalia's eventual opinion in the case would radically redefine and expand the scope of the Second Amendment right to bear arms. Delivering a landmark win, of course, for the NRA and the firearms industry. Some of the groups funding the conference, including the NRA, were amici curiae in the case. While at the conference, Scalia spoke with, what they have in quotes here, gun rights activist Alan Gottlieb of the Second Amendment Foundation and Stephen Halbrook of the NRA, both Heller amici. Gottlieb would recount that conversation after Scalia's death. Quote, So we didn't talk directly about the case itself because it would have been like a sort of conflict. But he did say, you know, Alan, it takes 4 votes on the Supreme Court to hear a case, and it takes 5 to win it. If I don't think we have the 5 to win it, there won't be 4 to hear it. That's interesting. Gottlieb continued. In other words, if he didn't think they were going to win, he didn't want to take the case. He's not going to vote to take the case in the hopes of winning. He's going to vote to not take the case if he thinks they'll lose it, so that the precedent isn't set that, no, you don't have a personalized right to go about armed at all times. But if I do think I have the 5 votes, then yes, we'll get it. Gottlieb continued, and that just made me feel like I knew at that point in time that if the Supreme Court took the Heller case, that we were going to win it. This revelation, in a case that the court hadn't yet decided, to a known advocate filing briefs in support of that outcome, presaged the result. Sure enough, Justice Scalia would go on to, quote, win Heller, delivering 5 votes for the NRA, Gottlieb, and the gun lobby. That is pretty interesting. There's a little bit more here, but remember, this story is being retold at a time when we're all supposed to be freaking out about the leak ahead of time of the Alito opinion in the abortion case. Oh, it's destroying the court. Well, guess what? That's, to continue with the story, how the extreme legal theory that Berger deemed a fraud on the American public became the new baseline for the Second Amendment. Not only was it a fraud legally speaking and in its legal underpinnings, but how about that? At an NRA convention, no doubt the trip being all expenses paid for Scalia, he tells parties to the case, or amici anyway, in the case, that, it's all set. And if I, don't think we're going to win it, then I'm not going to vote to take the case. So if the case gets on the docket, it's a lock. Just wanted to let you know now. But don't leak anything. And today, 19 little innocent children are dead, joining thousands more American gun violence victims, more and more each day. Only in America, only with this court, Alex concludes. So, good point, good thread. Thanks, Patrick, for sharing that one. Speaking of things that others have shared with us, I want to back up a little bit more. Let's see. I know I parked this one in pocket so that I could be sure to get to it. But listening the other day and wishing that he had, been able to chime in real time, Chris Cammers, who you'll find on Twitter as C Cammers, CCAMMERS. Lots of double letters. Well, 2. Anyway, Chris says this, listening to the Kagro X podcast, wishing I had listened live to help with the Wisconsin pronunciation. Stupid pronunciations all around the country. It's driving me crazy. We ran into the municipality, I guess, of, the correct pronunciation apparently locally is De Pere. D-E-P-E-R-E. 2 words. D-E-P-E-R-E. And I thought that might be De Pere, perhaps. But no, it's not only De Pere, but Da Pere. Like, to get on your boat, you have to walk on the pier, right? Okay, Chris says, sorry, David, even if it does make me laugh when you struggle with pronunciation. I struggle because I care. I mean, I could just blow through everything. Why worry about pronunciation? I certainly the name of that town is Uvalde. I don't know if that's a Spanish word or not, but that's the only way I would pronounce it. Uvalde is even wrong. Uvalde is totally wrong. Never mind the number of towns I've found besides the one in Virginia that decide that, no, the real pronunciation is Buena Vista. It's not Buna. Buna isn't a word in anything. This is clearly Spanish. Buena Vista. It's not that hard, really. We have the English letters to manage it if we need to. Buena Vista. Buna. Buna. That's crazy. If it was B-E-U-N-A, Buna, then yeah, Buna. But no. Anyway, Da Pere. Okay. I don't know whether is that anglicized French, maybe. Anyway, something's wrong with all of that. But anyway, thanks to Chris for chiming in on that. I appreciate that. And I have fun struggling with these things. And I don't know, it adds local flavor that I can't give to the story because I don't know how to pronounce it and I don't have time to be looking everything up. And who knows whether I'm getting good information anyway. But it's a struggle we all have to live with. All right. Let's see. A couple of other things here. Was there more that I wanted to pull out of the KITM hashtag? I think that kind of wraps it up, except, let's see. Maybe I feel like there are probably a few other items in here that I missed, but I'll scroll back just to make sure. Okay. I think, Patrick has sent us another one. And now I feel obligated. We have to dive into this one. Unsettling news. He sends a thread from Sarah Spector, who says, as an ex-prosecutor from Uvalde, I can say based on my past interactions with the Uvalde PD, you will never know the truth about what went down in that school until every inch of videotape is released to the press. That's entirely possible, and I'm sure that there's some surveillance cameras in there. And maybe that's what this is all about, delaying until it is, I don't know, things cool down a little bit, because releasing the tape right now would just be explosive. But we'll see, and we'll see how quickly that tape comes out and whether we get our hands on it and get to see what's going on there or not. All right. Let's see. Other things to share. I'm going to scroll back down Pocket. There have been a number of interesting developments in the last couple of days. I've already scrolled all the way back to Buffalo, so that's pretty interesting. Yes, here's something that I had sitting around. I guess in light of having shared the story about Colombia, I will share this one. Now that we have Finland and Sweden on the verge of joining NATO, and public opinion there swinging in favor of joining NATO, I thought I would remind everybody of one of the possible benefits of having Finland join us formally. And it's not the raking of the forests, which may or may not be happening, but something else that recommends Finland perhaps for inclusion, and something we might learn from them. Do you remember way back when? When was it? There's a date on this somewhere, right? Apparently not. CNN special report. And because it's special, we don't have to date it. But I think it's from 2019. And maybe the context of the story will tell us a little bit. But you remember this one. Finland is winning the war on fake news. What it's learned may be crucial to Western democracy. And this was all reported outside of the context of their joining NATO. It was from a couple of years ago. But I remember reading about this report and probably discussing it a little bit, at least on the air. And to give you a flavor, just by way of reminding you, I'll read the first couple of paragraphs here. On a recent afternoon, a couple of years ago actually, in Helsinki, a group of students gathered to hear a lecture on a subject that is far from a staple in most community college curriculums. Standing in front of the classroom at Espoo Adult Education Center. Oh boy, I forgot I was going to be reading Finnish names here. Jussi, is it an I or an L? Toivanen, I'm guessing. Oh my God. Jussi Toivanen worked his way through his PowerPoint presentation. A slide titled, "Have You Been Hit by the Russian Troll Army?" included a checklist of methods used to deceive readers on social media. Image and video manipulations, half-truths, intimidation, and false profiles. Another slide, featuring a diagram of a Twitter profile page, explained how to identify bots, look for stock photos, assess the volume of posts per day, check for inconsistent translations and a lack of personal information. The lesson wrapped with a popular deep fake, highly realistic manipulated video or audio of Barack Obama to highlight the challenges of the information war ahead. The course is part of an anti-fake news initiative launched by Finland's government in 2014, 2 years before Russia meddled in the U.S. elections, but right on time for the invasion of Ukraine, by the way, aimed at teaching residents, students, journalists, and politicians how to counter false information designed to sow division. The initiative is just one layer of a multi-pronged cross-sector approach to that the country is taking to prepare citizens of all ages for the complex digital landscape of today and tomorrow. The Nordic country, which shares an 832-mile border with Russia, is acutely aware of what's at stake if it doesn't. Finland has faced down Kremlin-backed propaganda campaigns ever since it declared its independence from Russia 101 years ago, and now 103, 104. But in 2014, after Moscow annexed Crimea and backed rebels in eastern Ukraine, it became obvious that the battlefield had shifted. Information warfare was moving online. Thank God we're admitting the Finns to NATO. They would have a thing or two to teach us about dealing with these guys. Toivonen, the chief communications specialist for the Prime Minister's office, said it is difficult to pinpoint the exact number of misinformation operations to have targeted the country in recent years, but most play on issues like immigration, the European Union, or whether Finland should become a full member of NATO. Russia is not a fan, it reminds us in parentheses here. But remember, this is from 2019. As the trolling ramped up in 2015, President Sauli Niinistö, Finnish names, my goodness, Sauli, Sauli, I don't know whether they have pronounced it exactly that way or any way at all. Niinistö, Niinisto, a little tough for American English speakers, but okay. Called on every Finn to take responsibility for the fight against false information. A year later, Finland brought in American experts, whoops, that's a mistake, to advise officials on how to recognize fake news, understand why it goes viral, and develop strategies to fight it. The education system was also reformed to emphasize critical thinking. So I guess the good point here is they brought in American experts and then said, all right, what have you got to say? Okay, thank you. And now we'll translate that for a Finnish audience and add some common sense to it. I don't know who the experts were. Maybe they were great and we should be listening to them too, and we've been ignoring them. I don't know. But as you know, everything has to start with paying an American expert. But then they, went on to develop their own curriculum. Although it's difficult, I said a couple of paragraphs, but it's actually quite interesting. Now, I'm going to continue a little bit. Although it's difficult to measure the results in real time, the approach appears to be working, and now other countries are looking to Finland as an example of how to win the war on misinformation, because we lost it. It's not just a government problem. The whole society has been targeted. We are doing our part, but it's everyone's task to protect the Finnish democracy, Toivonen said, before adding, the first line of defense is the kindergarten teacher. And that's true here in the United States too, but we're talking about gun attacks when we say that. I'm going to continue a little bit here. Sorting fact from fiction, in the next section here, at the French-Finnish School of Helsinki, a bilingual state-run K-12 institution, that ethos is taken seriously. I wondered whether there was some French, no pun intended, French connection here, because the story is illustrated up at the top with a picture of the kids outside the school, and there's a big mural on the wall, and it's got the French, Chanticleer, red, white, and blue. Is that right? Am I making that up? Am I thinking of something completely different? Because there was a French restaurant in Milburn, New Jersey, called the Chanticleer, and it had this rooster on it. And I don't know whether that's the same thing. I mean, there's the national symbol thing, and then there was that, and maybe I'm confusing the two, and that's probably really funny to my mom who's listening, and anyone from Milburn, New Jersey, perhaps, or any French people. But anyway, the point is the damn rooster is on the school, and I was wondering, what's the connection to that? And it was clearly the French thing. It was red, white, and blue. That's not a natural coloring for a rooster. Anyway, that'll teach me to try to bring up some French word and use it again without any knowledge of what it is. But at this French-Finnish school, they're taking this very seriously. In Valentina Uitto's class, U-I-T-T-O, maybe that is Uitto, in her social studies class, a group of 10th graders were locked in debate over what the key issues will be in next week's EU elections. Brexit, immigration, security, and the economy were mentioned with a flurry of raised hands before the students were asked to choose a theme to analyze. They've gathered what they think they know about the EU election. Now let's see if they can sort fact from fiction, Yuito said with a smirk. The students broke off into groups, grabbing laptops and cell phones to investigate their chosen topics. The idea is to inspire them to become digital detectives, like a rebooted version of Sherlock Holmes for the post-millennial generation. Our class is the embodiment of Finland's critical thinking curriculum, which was revised in 2016 to prioritize the skills students need to spot the sort of disinformation that has clouded recent election campaigns in the U.S. and across Europe. Unfortunately, by the way, here in the United States, we're banning the critical thinking curriculum so that children continue to be fooled by the propaganda campaigns of the lost causers and the racists, but at least they're domestic lost causers and racists here in the good old USA, except the Russian propagandists know very well that is not only stuff that works with Americans, but also stuff that is favored by at least one political party, one major political party in the United States. And you can absolutely get away with slipping propaganda in under that door. You'll be encouraged to do so by the party that, at the moment, stands possibly to win a majority in both the House and the Senate during the last 2 years of the Joe Biden term. And we all know what it means when the opposite party runs the Congress and the president is a Democrat. That means no more getting anything done for the president if you're trying to do so legislatively or with the approval, advice, and consent of the Senate. You know exactly where we're going with that. The school recently partnered with the Finnish fact-checking agency, what do they call it? Faktabari. That's what they call it. Fakta being fact, I guess. Faktabari. There's a lot of A's in there. Faktabari. That's Fact Bar. That makes some sense. That's actually about as close as I've ever seen Finnish get to English cognates. Faktabari. Well, that's the agency that they're partnering with to develop a digital literacy toolkit for elementary to high school students learning about the EU elections. It was presented to the bloc's expert group on media literacy and has been shared among member states. The exercises include examining claims found in YouTube videos and social media posts, comparing media bias in an array of different clickbait articles, probing how misinformation preys on readers' emotions, and even getting students to try their hand at writing fake news stories themselves. How interesting. What we want our students to do is before they like or share in the social media, that they think twice. Who has written this? Where has it been published? Can I find the same information from another source? Kari Kavinen, director of Helsinki French-Finnish School and former Secretary General of the European Schools, told CNN. He cautioned that this is a balancing act, trying to make sure skepticism doesn't give way to cynicism in students. True and good point. It is very annoying to have to fact-check everything, not being able to trust anything or anyone on the internet, said 15-year-old Tatu Tukianian. Tukianian? Anyway, one of the students in Yuito's class. I think we should try to put a stop to that. Okay, well, we should put a stop to the reading of this article because it is time for us to wrap things up here, of course, for the day and for the weekend, and then later, of course, to decide just what the hell we're going to do with Monday. But I'll consult with Greg, and I'll take your suggestions for it as well so that we can make a rational decision together, free from media bias and Russian propaganda, and decide how to go forward with Monday and the balance of the week. Okay, well, I think we got to an awful lot of these things that were backed up in pocket. There's still much more, of course, and we got to the various suggestions that many of you have sent in along the way. So, terrific. Not a bad day's work, I think, for a Friday. Let's see. Almost time for our music. In fact, let's roll it, and let's use this opportunity to switch gears and read the carefully prepared preview of the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Justice Putnam. He sends this every day. It's well organized. It's an easy script to read, and I never give myself time to do it. So let's do it today. Here's the way they come, by the way. Blue Moon Spirits Friday. He's got a name for each day of the week and everything. Starting off in the Bistro Cafe, the GOP obsession with guns reveals a major weakness within the party. Oh, good. Let's find out what that one is. Everybody stay tuned for that. On the rest of the menu, the Interior Department announced funding to clean up an abandoned lots of abandoned oil and gas wells, not just one in particular. The Senate GOP unanimously blocked the bill to combat domestic terrorism. Yes, that was an event yesterday. And Susan Collins blocked the confirmation of a NOAA, that's National Oceans and Atmospheric Administration, a NOAA official, over rules designed to protect rare whales. Why would you want to protect them? They might have chalk. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where the United States won the latest round of a legal battle to seize a $325 million, 348-foot Russian-owned super yacht in Fiji. Well, that sounds pretty good. Plus, I'd like to go and pick that yacht up, if you don't mind.
From networksradio.com. You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
That's right. And in fact, there's more here. The Turkish central banks will keep the interest rate at a whopping 14%, despite a 70% rate of inflation. All that and more on the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef de Cuisine, Justice Putnam. Bon appetit, and have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.